So you're given a question that's written in this way. We have negative 4/5 plus 2 over negative 3. Now, you're used to adding fractions where both denominators are positive, right? So what would we do with this negative symbol in where it's next to the denominator? What would you do with it? Because you need to add these fractions together. But if you have a negative denominator, that's not going to work, right? So what are we going to do? Yep. When you add fractions, you don't add the denominators together, right? You only add the numerators. So this is telling me that this is a negative 4/5, and this negative here tells me that this fraction is also a negative. But we don't want the negative with the denominator. What should we do with it? Yes, Nalani. Can we just take this and switch it to the top? Can you do that? Can I put negative 4/5 plus and then put this with the numerator? Yes, because you're not changing the fraction. Negative, let me guess, you can put the negative symbol with the numerator. That way I can add these fractions together now because you don't add the denominators. So now what do we have to do? Find the, okay, so find the lowest common denominator. Do it right now. 15, good. 5 times what is 15? Times 3 times what? Times 5 times 5. Good. Negative 12 over 15 plus negative 10 over 15.
Yeah, 10 over 6. Oh, yeah,
15, good. Because it's 3 times 5. Now we are simply just going to add the numerators. I know that the answer is going to be out of 15. So what is negative 12 plus negative 10? Good, negative 22. Okay, now we want to turn this into a mixed number. Again, we are just referring to this negative sign as an indicator that our answer has to be negative. So put your negative there, and then turn this 22 over 15 into a mixed number. How many times does 15 go into 22? Once. With how many left over? 7 out of 15. Can that be reduced anymore? No. So the answer is negative 1 and 7/15. That's it. Negative 2 over 3. 2 over negative 3. Do these represent the exact same value?
Yes.
A negative divided by a positive or a positive divided by a negative. These are equivalent. If I did this, is that okay? No, because that changes your fraction. That changes your answer. That would become a positive. But if I did that, it would be a negative. If I wrote it like that, it would also be a negative. I'm still showing that it's a negative fraction. Evaluate negative 2.5 x, which means negative 2.5 multiplied by x divided by y. When x is equal to 5 1/3 and y is equal to negative 1 7/9. First thing you want to do is where you see the variable, we have to replace it because we're given a value. So I have negative 2.5 times what? 5 1/3 divided by y. What's the value of y? Negative 1 7/9. Okay, so this is the first part, and I can put this in brackets because I know that I need to multiply my fraction by my variable. Okay, so we have to turn these into improper fractions. Remember, when you're turning the mixed number into proper fraction, ignore the negative sign. It's 2 times 2 plus 1, which is 5 over 2, but we have to put a negative there. It's a negative fraction. And then 5 1/3 is 5 times 3. 15 plus 1, 16, divided by, again, we ignore the negative when we're multiplying because you'll get a different answer. 9 times 1 plus 7. So we have 16 over 9. And what do we do next? Yep. Okay, so now we have to multiply. When we are multiplying fractions, numerator times numerator. We have a negative times a positive, so my answer will be
Hi, miss. Can
negative.
I ask for a favor?
Good. Negative 80. 2 times 3. Is it positive or negative 6? Positive, good. Divided by negative 16 over 9. Looking at this right now, I have a negative divided by a negative, so I know my answer has to be
Positive.
good. But before we do that, let's actually solve it. So how do I divide fractions? Yes? So I keep this, negative 80 over 6, and then what? Divide or multiply?
Multiply.
Multiply by the
Uh,
reciprocal. So how would I write this?
9 over 16.
Is that right? Positives? Both positives?
Negative.
Does it matter where I put the negative? No, I'm just going to put it here. Doesn't matter because it's still indicating it's a negative fraction. If I made them both negative, that's incorrect. So now we have 80 times 9, a negative times a negative equals positive 720. 6 times 16 equals what? 96. And we have to put this in lowest terms. How many times does 96 go into 720? 7 times, with how many left over? You have 48 left over out of 96. What's half of 96? 48. So that represents a half. So it'd be 7 and a half in lowest terms.